In this video, we're going to talk about what happens and what we need to do when we come across a sensitive memory for our client. A lot of times when we do hypnosis, we were going to the past and retrieving resources and having new perspectives on old situations, so it's not uncommon for a memory that's very sensitive, maybe even traumatic, to come up. And sometimes we are not really prepared for it. It just kind of happens. So the best thing, I think, is to have a game plan. Now, what we're going to talk about today is not so much a way to get into the memory and create a cathartic experience for the client. It's just more how to deal with the fact that the memory came up. Because we're going to operate right now that maybe the client may not be 100% ready to go into that full experience of the memory. So here's a couple of things I found that can be very, very beneficial if a client starts to have a kind of a upswing of an emotion due to this memory, maybe a traumatic memory. So first thing is always be aware that the client can come out of trance anytime, anywhere. And you can let them know that as part of your pre-talk. And you can even tell them, in just a moment, I'm going to say 3. And when I say 3, you can easily and gradually, quickly come out of the trance. And that'll bring them out a lot of times. Other times, you may need to be a little more creative. So for example, if you notice that one of your clients is experiencing a painful memory, and you're seeing a certain abreaction they're having, you may say, and right now, as you're experiencing that, you can go back just 2 or 3 minutes before that event happened. And as you go back 2 to 3 minutes before that event happened, you can tell me what emotions you're feeling. Now, most of the time what will happen is that'll pull the person out of that memory to 2 or 3 minutes before, where usually, and I've never experienced this, there was nothing, not going on. It was just everyone was calm and comfortable, and there was nothing that was setting off alarm bells. And they'll usually say they're relaxed, or, well, nothing's going on, or I'm okay, and that kind of thing. So if you take them back 2 to 3 minutes before the event happened, this traumatic or sensitive event, have them just stay there for 30 seconds and really experience nothing happening, that feeling of calm or whatever the pleasant emotion is. And then you can tell them, and I want you to hold on to this emotion and to quickly come back through all your memories of the past. You can quickly come back through the event that started, all the reasons you came today, through other events until you come back to today, where you can become very comfortable in my office. Now, what will happen is this person will have that feeling of comfort, and it brings them back through. So in a way, they're adding that comfort to all those other life experiences. But the key here is it needs to be quickly. You don't want them to get back stuck in that traumatic or sensitive memory, because that might make things worse. So if you do notice they're getting stuck, have them float up above the memory and then come forward through time above the memory, looking down onto the events that happen. So we're creating a little bit of emotional disassociation from uncomfortable events. So as this person's floating in space, they're carrying that feeling of calm with them. And then when they come into the office in their mind, into the present moment, a lot of times when you bring them out, they still are holding that feeling of calm. And this sometimes is enough just to create a change in how they felt about the old situation. Another way to do it would be, maybe if they're really down in that memory, that feeling, is to have them continue experiencing it, but from a long distance away in their mind. I know in neurolinguistics, they usually talk about, watching things on a movie screen and scrambling things up and changing the colors and sounds, but just getting them out of the memory and seeing themselves from a good distance away to experience the movie might be a gradual way to introduce them to that traumatic event. It lessens a little bit of that emotional content. And then third is simply that if they're starting to have this kind of emotional reaction to something painful, is to just allow them to feel those emotions and utilize and support. But if we feel that they're not ready to really get down in it, we do need to kind of move them out and move them past that. So a lot of times, as we moved them 2 or 3 minutes before, maybe we need to move them an hour after, a day after, a month after. And so what happens with a traumatic memory, they get stuck at that key part of intensity. So if we can get them to move past that in their mind, this mental movie that's playing, well, so, oh, there's an ending to this. I'm not always stuck on this horrible event. I remember one time I had a lady who came in who was in had been in a bank robbery, and she's the one that they put the gun to her head to open the drawers of the safe. I can't remember which. So, a couple of days after it, she can't sleep. She's scared all the time because all she could see is that moment right there with the gun, and she didn't know if she could live or die. So merely by taking her to an hour after where the police were there and people were hugging each other and saying, okay, thank God we made it, we're safe. And just adding that last piece to the puzzle of what's going on here was enough to have her be able to take some of the intensity out, because her brain kept going, we're about to die, we're about to die, we're about to die. And now it's like, we're about to die. Okay, we're okay. All right, well, that was scary, but we're okay now. So adding a little bit of extra past that initial traumatic moment will allow the brain to kind of move forward unconsciously. So these are some ideas to play with when you do get somebody who has a traumatic or extremely sensitive memory that causes them trouble. But this really, it's important for us to pay attention, and this information is here to assume that you're a therapist who is already doing therapy and has all the tools needed to deal with somebody who's experiencing traumatic memories and emotions associated with it. So I hope this helps, and maybe at a later date, or we can get more into this kind of discussion, because it is a fascinating ideas of how the brain deals with those kind of memories and events. So have fun with it, and I'll see you next time.